there folks, we are talking about my top 10 recommendations of board games here that are branch games in my mind. So these games have some different elements to them that can branch into other games, and so they have different types of mechanics and different things like that, different styles of games, some heavier on strategy, some more party games, and if you try out these games, it should lead you into some other games that you enjoy. So it's almost a types of games, but they're also, a lot of these are kind of the baseline in my mind of, they're not super heavy on many of the different components or anything like that. So they're fairly straightforward, and a lot of these are really, I think all of these are really easy to get and not too expensive either. So a game that you can try out and say, oh, I really liked that, now I can find more games that are like that, or a game that, hey, I didn't love that, but at least I didn't spend that much on it. So a lot of these games, I like many games more than it, but it's because I've played so many games, as you can see around me. But this is my suggestion for you, so that you can know what types of games you might enjoy. Now, starting out, this is in no particular order except by size. I've got the biggest game at the bottom and some smaller games on top, just box size, just because I had a stack. So number one here is a deck of cards. You probably already have a deck of cards. I'm also going to say dice. There are so many games that you can play with just a simple deck of cards and dice, and so you can learn, do I like push my luck, push your luck type games. There's a lot of games that have that element in there. With dice, you can just play some of those types of games. There's some deduction games, almost like Liar's Dice. You can play that and see, do I like that interaction, trying to figure out if someone's lying. There's some things you can do with that. Poker, you even got that kind of a sense. There's a lot of games with a deck of cards. Do you like trick-taking games? There's a lot that stems from dice and cards. There's so many games, it's hard to find a game that doesn't use one or both of these. And so I just think that's a really intriguing thing and a great starting place. If you just hate playing dice games and card games, I don't know if there's a lot of board games that you're going to enjoy, unless I'm just thinking about it differently than you are. But that would be my first recommendation, is just, that's how I started, was just with my wife. When we were dating, we would go to a coffee shop and play different games, and it was just to spend time with each other, which is still what I enjoy about board games, is how it brings people together. There's just some more games that I think are fun at doing that in different ways as well. So that is my first one there. So that would be a first recommendation, would be a deck of cards. You probably already got one. Dice, you've probably already got dice. Get out there and play with those and see what kind of things you may or may not enjoy. The next one here, this is a party game. This is specifically the party edition, Exploding Kittens, right here. So pretty cool little box right there. This is a fairly straightforward game. This is definitely not heavy on the strategy. Every card tells you what it does, and you're just trying to be the last person alive. So you draw a card, and as soon as you draw a card, your turn's over. You can play cards so that you don't have to draw a card, because when you draw cards, they're the exploding kittens, and if you get that, if you don't have a diffuse in your hand, then you lose and you're out of the game. So you're just trying to stay in as long as you can. But I feel like there's a lot of kind of party games that are like this, where there's some fashion of this, and a lot of them actually come from this maker right here. So there's like Happy Little Dinosaurs up there that kind of has a similar theme, and it's a very easy in, but it feels like there's some strategy there as well. So that's another one that might be worth checking out. This right here, Sushi Go, is one that I really enjoy. It is a pick and pass card game, and so you've got your set of cards, and I'm going to pick one, put it down, and then I'm actually going to pass all of the rest. And so if I'm playing with 3 people, I'm going to pass my hand, I'm going to take the next one, and you're trying to make different combos, trying to get the best cards and combos in mind as you play. So you can kind of remember what you passed and try and think of what might get passed back around to you. So there's some strategy there, but it's a pick and pass card game, and so that's an element that may be prevalent in some other games that you could get into. And if you really like this, there is Sushi Go Party, I think is what it's called. It's a bigger tin box that has a lot of stuff in it. So that's really fun. Seven Wonders is another game that does this. And so there's a number of games that use this kind of mechanic that I think is fun. But this one's a really, really easy one to get into and play, and still super fun. Even though I've played all of these other games, I'll still play Sushi Go as well. Codenames right here. Looks like we've got a lot of more party type games up front here, but this is Codenames. You've probably heard of this, and this is one that kind of reminds me of Catchphrase almost, where it's a words type game. You're trying to get your teammates to guess. You break your group into two teams, and you can play with a huge group of people. This is one that's really good if you have parents with kids, because there's no number of people that can play, and people can come in and out whenever they want. So if they have a crying kid, they can take them and leave, and the whole table can still play. They don't have to pause and wait for that person. So I really, really like that. You have one person giving out clues. And so here would be the back of the box, an example right there of what you've got. You've got all of these words with cards on them. And so, like, let's say there's red, blue, and yellow that are out there. And all of those, I look at my sheet, and all of those are words that I'm trying to get my team to guess. I would say colors, 3. And so they know they need to guess 3 words that are colors. And so if they see those out there, that's a pretty obvious one. But sometimes I might only have 2 of those. So do I say colors 2? And then if they touch the wrong one, then we get it wrong. But hopefully they'd know next time. Interesting balance. So fun party game right there. Codenames, do enjoy that. I think there's some other games that this could get you into potentially that use similar elements. There's not a whole lot that use all that similar elements, but it's just one of those types of games that's a party game around words and kind of clue giving and that kind of thing. So there are some others you could get into if you really enjoy that one. This one, if you enjoy trick-taking, but you also enjoy cooperative games, this is an incredible game. This is one that I am going to replay a bunch. There are 2 of these, and they're both really, really good. This is the first one, and is more simple to get into and start playing, but basically you are trying to take different tricks and get different cards to different people. So if you're familiar with trick-taking, everyone's going to play a card, and the most powerful card is going to win. So there's some trump cards that win no matter what color's played. There's other things like that, whereas if everyone plays the same color, the highest number is going to win. So pretty simple, and you're trying to get certain people to win certain cards. And so there's a little deck of cards you're going to shuffle, and you're going to hand out. These are tasks. So if I have the blue 1 in front of me, the whole table is going to try to help me win the blue 1. So if I start out with the blue 10, and then the next person plays the blue 8, then the next person, they're going to play the blue 1 because they want me to win that, and then the last person, they just don't want to beat me, basically, is how that works. So if I win that, I get to flip that one over, and we completed that task. Some games, there's a bunch of them. It sounds really simple, and it's amazing how much more fun it is than my explanation of it is probably right now. But there's a little storyline. There's 50 different missions that it runs you through. So there's a lot of longevity to this game as well that I really enjoy. It's one that's super easy to set up and play, and it's one that is definitely like, oh, one more round, we can do it. So very quick, very easy. You can stop and put it away and come back to it later really, really easily. So the Crew is a high recommendation if you enjoy trick-taking games. Some people don't enjoy the cooperative aspect, but almost everyone I've played with has enjoyed that cooperative aspect of this game. So really fun how it twists it. Instead of it's just win, 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 win as much as you can, now you're cooperatively working with people to help other people win certain tricks and things like that. So I really enjoy that. This is not my favorite secret deduction game, but it is the simplest one just to dive into. Very streamlined, very straightforward, easy to get, nice small box right here, easy to transport. Just straightforward, easy to to dive into. So this is a game that will help you get into secret deduction games. And so if you like trying to figure out who is who's the bad person here, who is the, you know, whatever, the bad person, the person that's betraying us, whatever, this is a game you can get into and really figure out if that's the type of game for you or not. This is very group dependent, I feel like sometimes. There's some people that love social deduction games, and there's some people that just don't like it as much. And so there's a lot of yelling at people, and it can be super fun, but some people find that stressful, don't like it. I don't want to lie. I don't want to say, oh no, I'm not I'm not the enemy. I'm a good guy. And some people just don't like that lying aspect. They think they're not good at it or whatever, which is great. You shouldn't be good at lying. But yeah, this is a fun one. I enjoy it, but I've played enough games again just to have some others that I would probably play before this one. But this is a great entry, and if you enjoy it, there are some others to potentially take a look at that can be a little more in-depth and different things like that. This will introduce you to the roll and write genre. This is actually a flip and write. It uses cards, so you have a stack of cards that have different symbols on them, and then you flip the cards, and so you've got on the back of the one card symbols, and then you've got numbers. So you're going to pair those up, and you're trying to build a little neighborhood. So you've got like 100 sheets of paper, and you're writing on these with a pencil, and then you rip them off and you throw them away when you're done. So you got 100 of them. It's going to take you a while to go through them, or you could laminate them. That's what some people do. But roll and writes, basically what you do in these games is you've got a sheet of paper, like I mentioned in this one, and in this one it's cards. In a lot of games you roll dice, and you're going to take different combinations of dice and write it on your pad, and everyone's going to do this. Sometimes everyone's looking at the same stuff. Sometimes people are looking at different things, and so I'll take my turn, then you take your turn. In general, you'll roll the dice, and everyone will kind of take from that, which is a fun aspect to have everyone working with the same thing, but seeing how people use it in different ways is kind of fun. So this is one that I really, really enjoy. It's one of the more popular ones, one that I keep hearing of more and more, and I do really enjoy it. It does have some depth to it, and so it's going to take just a touch to get through the rules, but once you get the hang of it, it's very, very simple, very straightforward, I think, understanding what all the little different cards and things do. But you're trying to, in this one, make a little community. You're trying to make the best community you can, and you've got these 3 different neighborhoods. You're trying to put the house numbers in order, and so the cards go from 1 up to 15, but there's only like 8 houses here, and so you can skip some numbers, but you can't. You could start with 7, but then on the right side of that, the only thing that could go there is 8 or higher. So you're trying to balance that out as best as you can. But I really enjoy that. It's a really nice game, really fun one. So that will introduce you to roll and writes specifically, and there's a lot of roll and writes that I really enjoy. Smaller games in general that are just fun to run around, a lot of flexibility with how many people can play and different things like that. So roll and write games are super fun, and this would be my recommendation for starting. If you want a super simple roll and write to get started, you could do Lost Cities roll and write. That one's a little more simple than this one. Still easy to get, nice small box and all that. And if you love that, you could go into this one if you want something that seems a little bit more simple to dive into. This is kind of, it's not exactly what I was thinking of with a tile placement game. This is going to get you into some strategy, and you also are placing tiles. So in a sense, it's a tile placing game. I had some others that like tile placing is the main thing. This one is definitely tile placement, meeple placement, got some strategy in there as well. And so this is Carcassonne. It is a very popular game, has been popular for a long time, but it's fairly, as far as everything we've talked about, it's simple to understand, but it's got some depth to it, and it's a fairly straightforward, pretty quick game, very easy to pick up, and really popular. So it might be a game you already own, might be a game that a friend of yours would own because, again, it is very, very popular. But that is Carcassonne. It's going to introduce you to the tile placement a little bit of how you have to match up different roads that may be on places or cities or different things that you need to line up. But then also meeple placement, which is kind of one of my favorite aspects in a game, is just placing your meeple and getting to do different things based on what you have there. Fun game, so I do enjoy that. It's a little bit heavy. It's not a heavy game, but it's heavier in comparison to a lot of the stuff we're talking about, which is part of my goal, is to make it feasible for people to play these games and see if you enjoy them and then take the next step into other stuff. If you are looking for basically the original cooperative game that made cooperative gaming what it is today, Pandemic would be the one. You've probably heard of this game as well, and you might have a friend that has this game as well, so that's probably true with a lot of these games. But Pandemic, you are trying to, it's a map game, so I like that. There's a lot of map games out there where you're moving around doing different tasks. This game is very much that. And in this game, you're working together as a team. You've got different roles, so you each have kind of a unique ability, which is super fun. But you're moving around to these different locations, and there are different diseases that are spreading. There's 4 of them, and they just get bigger and bigger unless you're able to stay on top of them, which is pretty hard. And so you're also trying to find cures. That's how you win the game, is you're trying to find the cures for all 4 of these diseases. So you're running around the board collecting cards. You can use these cards to move, but you also are going to need those cards to find cures and eradicate these diseases. So that is Pandemic. Fun game. It is got some strategy in it, but it's fairly light, and it is a great introductory cooperative game. So that is Pandemic right there. And my last game, actually not my last game, sorry. I've got this game and one more behind me. Ticket to Ride. This is another map game right here. I think this is a really good one for introducing you to some strategy, and then also just the map game and kind of planning ahead, cards, this and that. But you are basically trying to build different routes, and everyone's routes are different, which is super fun because not everyone is fighting for the same thing. But I may have a route that goes from Vancouver to Toronto, and so I'm trying to, find a way to connect those 2 cities, and if I can do that, I get so many points, that kind of thing. But you have to go on this certain track. So if I want to go on this yellow track right here, I have to collect that many yellow cards. You get points for laying tracks, and then you get points for completing cards, and everyone's doing this at the same time. So a game I really enjoy. Again, really popular one, but I think this could introduce you into different strategy games as well. This one's fairly light. Again, really easy to jump into, and so you could play this with a lot of different groups, a lot of different people, and get into that. But my very, very last one right here is Dominion. Now, Dominion is going to introduce you into deck building, which is one of my favorite mechanics and elements in gaming. Basically, what you're doing is you're starting with 10 really fairly weak cards. You've got some victory points in there, which is what you use to win the game, and then you've got some copper, which is money, and it's the cheapest money you can have, valued at 1 apiece, which isn't terrible, but then when you get a silver, it's worth twice as much, or a gold worth 3 times as much. So you're trying to build up your hand and make it more and more powerful. In all of these deck building games, this is what you're doing. You're taking your starting hand and you're purchasing more powerful cards into your hand. Your hand is getting bigger and bigger. You're going to take 5 of these cards, and that's your hand. And then once you use those, you're going to discard them, take the next one. When you run out of your pile, you take everything in your discard pile, shuffle it back together. So you're using these cards over and over, and they're constantly cycling through, and you're hoping to get those 5 cards that you want. But you may buy a card that says draw 3 cards. So you draw 3 cards, and now you've got all this money more than you had before or whatever, so you can do more out there. So there's some games, there's a lot of games like this that use deck building. There's some that mesh a lot of different things, where you've got deck building and meeple placement and this and that, but there's a lot that are just focused on that deck building, which I really, 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 really like. It's a super fun mechanic where you can try to be strategic, but there's still some amount of luck with how your hand comes out. So I like that balance quite a bit. It's very, very fun. So Dominion is an incredibly great game by itself, but it's definitely the place to start with deck building. It was the first, I believe it was the first deck building game that really came out. And there's a bunch of expansions, so if you like Dominion, there's a lot of other games that you could play. There's a lot of other expansions you could add to this and play them together or play them just with the other one. And the base cards from this. And then there's a lot of other deck building games you could play if you enjoy this one. So those are my recommendations. I hope that gives you a nice little idea of some entry-level games that maybe you could purchase and take a look at and say, oh man, I really enjoyed this. I can go get something maybe a little more expensive, a little bigger experience, maybe something a little more in-depth, or maybe something just similar with a different feel to it, a different theme, that kind of thing. Or maybe you play a game and you're like, gosh, I really didn't like that. Hopefully that can give you a sense of that's, you know, the type of game I didn't like, or maybe it was the theme, that kind of thing. But these are my recommendations that hopefully would get you into games a little bit of an easy entry into some of these things and be able to march forward a little bit with some of those. So hopefully that gives you a nice variety as well. There's some people that enjoy all types and styles of games like myself, but there's some people that are kind of particular with different things. So hopefully I got one in there that you enjoy. But those are, I think, my 11 recommendations, if you count the deck of cards, for games that you should check out. So hopefully that gives you a nice little touch and a taste of those games, what they are, what they do, and why they may or may not be right for you. Thanks.